It's nearly 9 o'clock. You're listening to OTB AM if you're listening to us on OTB Sports Radio, or maybe you're watching us on YouTube, where you should hit the subscribe button. We're here every morning between 7:30 and 10 o'clock, and I'm delighted to say Brian Gartland is with us. Former footballer Brian Gartland. How's that resting with you?
Yeah, first time I've heard that, so it sounds... I'm not dealing with it too well, so no. I don't know. It didn't sound too great, but yeah, listen, it is what it is, and it's a great chapter of my life. I suppose most of my life so far that's passed by, and yeah, it's a transition. Looking forward to the future and seeing what it brings, but obviously going to miss it terribly.
You must, obviously everybody knows at some point you're going to have to stop playing. Were you one of those people who were like, oh, that's definitely going to happen, I'm making plans for that, I'm making peace with it, I'm going to live every moment? Or are you like, no, I'm not going to think about that until the day before it happens?
Yeah, I have a few things going on outside football, so everyone was sort of presumptuous, and I sort of convinced myself as well that that's going to be grand. You know, you've got other interests, it's going to distract you. But I don't think it comes down to that. I think when it came down to it, I thought it was Peter Pan. You know what I mean? I always said play forever, durability for years until I was 34, never had a bad injury, and so I was like, right, 37, 38, if I can stay at the top till that. Now I know people say that, you know, players don't and no one does.
They do more now than they used to, though.
They do now, but in the League of Ireland it's a different story. You're not earning a fortune. You
can't rest all day.
You can't have someone mind the kids and do all the work for you, and you know, you have to have other things, other stresses come into your life, and life changes and that sort of thing. So you're not sheltered from everything else like you would be at, say, I'm looking at Pepe and Thiago Silva.
Yeah, they have chefs.
Yeah, they've got everything, you know. So that was the aim. Now I fell a little bit short of it, so kept going as long as I could, just because I loved the game, just wanted to play, and it's that I suppose the last while, and I knew it's been coming, and I was watching the World Cup, and like the emotions in the World Cup, I think it exemplifies it more than any other football tournament, the Premier League and like that. I think the World Cup just brings out every emotion in it. And I'm looking at that, like even the intensity of the tackles and the games, like from other international games, and that from the very first group game. Yeah. And I'm looking at that and going, oh my God,
gonna miss that.
Yeah, how am I gonna replace this?
It's funny, the guy texted you, I messaged you during the week and I was like, congratulations, and then you were like, I don't know if it's congratulations or commiserations. Like, which should it be? Like, are you happy or sad?
Listen, I'm reflecting back on the career, and you know, I'm delighted with it, and couldn't have dreamed for some of the experiences I had. And it's, I suppose, the old saying that don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. It couldn't be any truer, and you just got to say it is what it is, and you get on with it. But yeah, it was I posted up the retirement. I specifically did it when I was on my own, because I'd had a few tears earlier on the day, and then I was sitting on the train down to here. I actually ended up in the pub around the corner, and on my own posted it up, and it took me half an hour. I had it all prepared, whatever. It took me half an hour to press the button.
Jesus.
So that was just sort of, and it's not dramatised, and it's just, football just means that much to me, and you're closing the door on it, and like I said, all those experiences and all those feelings, and all those people as well. You know, in the dressing rooms, I've been lucky. I've been in some fantastic ones. The one at Monaghan was brilliant and great crack. You know, a real introduction to it. And then Dundalk over the years, I've shared the dressing room with special players and people. Like we talk about all the players that have such talent, but they're brilliant lads. Like, you know, and great respect for each other, which you don't always get in dressing rooms.
It's funny how you mentioned Monaghan first. You won 5 league titles, and obviously the medals mean a lot, because that's kind of why everybody gets drawn into it in the first place. But the bit that seems to live with players who play for so long at the level you played at is actually, and it's always a cliche, it's like it is the crack, and it is the people along the way. Everybody always says it, and so it is cliche, but it's obviously really fundamentally true that, like, the thing that keeps you going is the relationships and wanting to help other people and wanting to be part of a team, and that's the bit that you can't easily replace.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you feel part of something, you belong to something. People rely on you, you're relying on other people the whole time, and like you said, just the interaction, just you're all working towards something, but at the same time the crack, like a footballer's sort of banter, I suppose is the word that's always used, is it's just you don't get it outside. I don't get it outside the same. And just there's always something. There's that many different characters. If you've always 20 lads in one dressing room, you're going to have that many different characters. And like I said, Monaghan was brilliant for it. It was my first sort of introduction of that. And I had a manager that made me feel really appreciated there. And then
Who was that?
Mick Cook.
Right.
Great man, and there's just so much time from him. And I was a young lad.
Where did he get you from?
From Shelbourne.
Right.
So and Shelbourne had been tough because they'd lost everyone. They'd gone through the worries, you know, after the, I suppose, money problems and that. And we were a young team, so there's a lot of pressure on us in a big club. And it was a nice learning curve, but it was, you know, it was tough, but it was a learning curve. And then Mick then took me to Monaghan, and first experience like that. And every year, I was there 3 years, but we built something. Like from Monaghan, we're bottom half of the first division.
Yeah. And
each year we built something, and then we just got pipped by Derry City team that had trouble or whatever, but they had a Premier Division team playing in the first division, and we just got pipped there on the end of the season to the league title. But each year something had built, and when you're working towards something like that and you can see the progression, you feel part of it, like you said.
And when you were leaving Shells to go to Monaghan, was there part of you that was like, this might not happen for me? Like, did you doubt at any stage that you were going to continue to make it?
Yeah, and I'd had a flip, like in the space of 18 months. I've been in Bray's, I was probably about 18, training with Bray's first team, and they were mid-table in the Premier. The league here was flying, there was plenty of money in the country, and Bray's ambition was to get into the European spaces, and I had ambition. I was chatting with Shane before. I was like, right, I want to get into the first team, get into the Irish under 21s, get a move away, all that, and then change of managers and an unfortunate turn of events. I ended up suspended for a few months, and I just wasn't going to get a look in there, so I went to Shells, and again got experience of playing. Mightn't have been the best season, but it stood to me. And then I went down to the bottom and had to work the whole way up.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking, like, I was just looking at your book is sitting behind you in the studio, like, I'm just thinking it must be nice to have gone through that and put these stories down on paper, so now you can kind of, now that you've retired, look back and you have them all documented. It's not like you're going to forget anything, you know, you have it written there.
I had said, especially at Dundalk, we were winning trophy after trophy, and Stephen always had this thing about being relentless, and that's what we were then. You know, he'd instilled this in us, and each time we won, and listen, we had great celebrations. We'd enjoy it, and you gotta celebrate moments like that. But it'd be the next one. Oh, that's done. It's in the back there. It's the next one. It's the next one. It's the next one. I always said, when I retire, I'll enjoy it and look back and be proud. But the book allowed me to do that before I retired, and that was because of COVID and the lockdowns and football stopped. So and it allowed me to, I suppose I learned a lot. You know, I gone into all these occasions, all these situations, and reflecting on them, I'm thinking, whatever opinion I had at the time, I could have actually had a different opinion now when I look back and see it from, say, someone else's point of view, say Stephen's point of view, if I had an altercation with him and that, and it's like, right, maybe he was right. But I was a younger lad a few years, it might have been 5, 6, 7 years ago, just going, I couldn't be wrong, it was his fault, in my head.
Yeah, well, not to labour the point, but to go down to Monaghan is obviously, it's risky in a way, right? Because it could be the end.
There's not much further you can
There's no guarantee you're going to get
into amateur football after it,
Yeah, there's no guarantee you're going to recover, but you do recover and end up having like a really great, by any standard, League of Ireland career. So in retrospect, it's a great experience to go through. I'm thinking of all this and your love of football. Like, it strikes me that coaching or management is something that would be natural, but you do have extracurricular interests, like a business that's going on at the moment. They're not always, you can't do these things, or it's difficult to juggle all those.
Yeah, it is, and I'm kind of at a point where I don't need to decide straight away. I might dip my toe in something, but not fall in, or it's a big commitment going into coaching and management,
and it's a really hard life.
Yeah, and let's be honest, the industry just isn't here in this country.
Yeah,
there's only a few jobs that are well paid. You then go back into the same thing of, I have a young family now, and when I met my wife, her brother played inter-county football, so she understood the commitment and all that, and the sacrifices. So that was grand. Before that was just me. I only had to worry about, I'm making that decision, it's me that deals with sacrifice. Then you have kids that come along. I mean, you can't have a weekend away
That
from
complicates
January to November.
Yeah.
And then you can't have a holiday, or you get 5 days off in June, and then mightn't suit with her work to take holidays then. Different stuff like that, or the kids' school and different things. There's a massive, massive sacrifice that comes from not myself then, from everyone in the background.
Yeah.
And it gets to a stage then, I suppose, with the injuries now, and if I go again, I'm going to miss pre-season because I have to have a small little operation. So you're playing catch up again, and I'm putting through. I wouldn't be the best at home sometimes when things are going that way. So you're putting everyone through stuff that at home, and they're sacrificing. And is it going to be worth it? Are we going to get the reward out of it, sort of thing? So there's a lot of variables then that come into it.
So would you do a coaching role somewhere to dip your teeth in that way, where you don't have all the responsibility of the Brian Gartlands who are coming to the end of their career, and you have to manage that relationship with them, and you're desperately hoping they come back for another season, and they're,
Yeah.
or the 19-year-old kid who wants to go off and play in England and is really only kind of phoning it in a little bit, but needs someone to wake him up, whereas you could just come, do the coaching session, go home and go, I did a great job today.
Yeah, I'd be interested in. I'm open to anything really.
Right.
Like I said, I'm just assessing different options. I have a few different options in terms of that regard, and I again have outside interests, but I'll always want to stay involved with football. And the outside interests, I'm hoping do well that allow me to stay involved in football and have the life I want, because like I said, the industry isn't here with massive money in football, and there's only so many jobs, sort of thing. So if my outside interests go well, then it allows me to give back on the other side, because I talked about it. I'm just finishing my UEFA B course there, and talked about it at the end, and I said I feel there's a debt to repay, because I spent all those years as a kid playing, all the volunteers, all the people giving up their time.
Who did you play with when you were coming through?
Knockline United being my local team,
right?
And then I jumped ship to Leicester Celtic just up the road, and then
Controversial.
No, that wasn't a controversial one. The next one was because Knockline had sort of disbanded, the ages changed, or they dropped down league, so I had to stay in the Premier. And Leicester, we had come second, I think, in semi-final of the All-Ireland. So it was good team and going places, and I jumped ship then to Verona over Blanchardstown, which for a lad that lives over in Dublin 16, and the M50 has been done, it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours to train, and I'm back after school. But it was a coach that was there, and I talked about him in the book there, Alan McGovern. He was with the FEI and I think the Ireland 14s at the time, and he took over Verona, and he had coached me at Knockline because he was brother-in-law of the manager,
right?
And I'd say like everything I learned in my childhood in terms of football came from him, in terms of just reading the game, tactical, defending, things like that. He was just a marvellous coach. So that's why that was the sort of controversial one when I jumped ship over there.
What role did Stephen Kenny play in your career and development?
Massive. Listen, it speaks for itself that I didn't win anything until I was 27. I went to Dundalk when I was 26. Like I said, I went down to the bottom and then just sort of scourged my way around. Kept working. I trained full time myself the whole time, and at home I'd be getting mid-20s. I'd be getting a little thing going, right, when are you going to get a proper job now, or how are you going to get a mortgage? And the brother then, he's a few years older, would be asking my mother the same questions, and there'd be a little bit of pressure coming that way. And but everything I did sort of was always to allow me to give everything to football. And then just when I was about signing for Dundalk, that's when I had the decision to make. I wanted to come back. I was up north and I wanted to come back down, and I've been training with Shells, waiting for them to offer me a contract. They didn't. Mick Cook was going to Drogheda, but it's mid-season, so they've nothing to play with. And again, the money was very little in the league then, 10 years ago. And out of the blue, Stephen rang me, and my world just turned upside down. And I didn't really want to go because I didn't want to travel, but I couldn't turn down the opportunity that there was just this chance of a medal. They were going all right in the league. They were up in the top 3 or 4. And when I was thinking, right, it's time to put everything else first, I just said, sure, I'll give it that's where the book came from, one last shot. I'll give it one last shot, and I signed for the rest of the season for 3 or 4 months. And sliding doors moment.
What was it about him that allowed you to reach your potential?
Just gives you belief. Just belief, like his enthusiasm for the game, like, and his love of the game. Like we'd be doing shooting drills or finishing drills, and after, like, if something came off, you know, that we'd sort of worked on, and then it seamlessly comes off, like, he'd be off celebrating as well. Like, he's brilliant, but the energy is infectious, you know. And then on the other side of it, he's so demanding. You don't want to get on the wrong side of him. You didn't want to get on the wrong side of him.
You said there, if there was an altercation, if we'd had, what give us some examples.
No, not an altercation.
Well, I know what you mean, like a disagreement.
You're going to have disagreements, and like, he'd say, well, you should have done this. You'd be saying, well, no, I did this, and you'll have different things. And
does he listen to you?
As you got older, you might have had a little bit more bravery to say something. When you're younger, and at a lot of the time, you just have to say, yeah,
fair enough,
my fault, fair enough, I think. But now and then, you're going to give your opinion back, and then you might the next time, because you realise you're better off not. But that's how the relationship develops over the years as well. Like, so many seasons with him, and he just, like I said, he just brought the best out, and everyone gave everyone belief, and belief to play a way that I suppose no one thought we could, or especially with the players. We didn't have tried and tested proven players in the league. We didn't have loads of league winners and people that have, I suppose, a history of quality behind them. And
so what do you think when you see the criticism of him now as the Ireland manager from certain quarters?
It's football. It's football in the modern world. Like, you guys will know it better than anyone. We take away the football, first of all. No matter what you do, there's going to be a certain quartet that's going to have that opposite opinion, right? Because sometimes football doesn't come into it. And that's, from my point of view, that's how I see it, because begrudgingly they won't want to say anything good when we do have a good game, and then when we do have a poor game, it's all in. You know, there'll always be something. I think the World Cup's the perfect example of it. Like, you've no right to win stuff, but you have to build something. Like, look at all the top teams. When I suppose you look at all the teams that have caused upsets in the last couple of weeks, and they've been building something for the last while, and it's just about structure. It's about belief and getting something there and bringing players through with that sort of way of playing and belief.
I think the point you make as well about there not being a massive industry here where there's only 3 or 4 jobs, like, you know, that's the crux of the whole problem, is that we used to rely on England
to develop everyone.
Yeah. Like coaches, managers, specifically players, and that's gone now. And what do we have in its place? Well, like, everybody goes, 15 years of underinvestment, but it's actually 100 years of underinvestment in the league. Basically, since Match of the Day started on the BBC, the League of Ireland has not been successful. Like, there's a kind of clear correlation, cause and effect. Everybody started watching TV
and
in
then
England.
When Sky came in as well, Sky paid for floodlights to move to Friday night to get them out of the way, you know, for the Premier League.
Yeah,
that's the old story, I suppose, back in the 90s, and you know, so that was even after Match of the Day. There's another sort of thing pushing you out of the way. And if you look at old attendances for the league back in the 70s, 80s, it was through the roof for 60s, 70s, 80s, because people didn't have access to football every single minute of the day.
And it does feel like in the last couple of years, like there's a move from within the league to fix this themselves, as opposed to waiting for the IRFU or the FAI or the government, Freudian slip, to come in and help things. And it feels a little bit like we're getting there, but the pace is so slow.
It is, but like you say, that it's clubs that are making moves themselves. I think the FAI are trying. They've obviously a lot to fix in their house. You know, we all know the history there, so they're trying and they're making moves forward. I wouldn't be privy to everything that's happening and going on in behind, so I'd like to be optimistic and think that they're doing their best, but what I'd love to see them is lobbying the government more and more and more, because like you say, like, it's such a big game, is that you need the support.
Yeah,
you need the support that the other big games get in the same way. But at the same time, football has to help itself, and it has to have a good image. It has to do its own work, and the clubs, I think, are doing that. And I think if they continue to do that, the support will have to come, because the communities around the clubs are growing bigger and bigger. Bows are doing a great job. It's very tough for the Dublin clubs because of the communities. If you're in a Dundalk, a Sligo, those type of things, you're a one club town. It can be you know,
Yeah.
you're the club.
Yeah.
But in the Dublin clubs, it can be quite hard.
Well, they live right beside each other. Bows and Shells live right beside each other, and
Yeah.
their hinterland is exactly the same, and so they are competing.
And then you've got the multicultural communities in there, sort of thing. So it's not a sense of belong. This is my team. This is my area. I grew up with, you know,
Yeah.
as I would be to Dundalk and stuff like that. So you have different, I suppose, things like that. So that's why I think Bows are doing a brilliant job in terms of that, in terms of commercial and marketing and that side. They get a bit of stick for it, but that's what's
You always get
that's
stick
what's
when you're doing
increasing their
things right.
revenues, and
Yeah.
their budget's bigger and bigger every year.
When you talk about the one last shot, like, you probably never could have imagined that the European adventures you'd have with Dundalk, whatever, like playing at the Emirates, for example, or, you know, taking on top quality teams in Europe. That must have been something special.
Yeah, it was incredible when you think back at it, and you think like Zenit, and they've been in the Champions League year after year, and you're playing over there in that stadium, and the lights were something like Friday night lights. Everyone just remembers them, the old fashioned ones, and it's an old stadium. They got a new one the next year for the World Cup, but, and then arriving into the Emirates, and you're pulling up on the bus, and their cars are all parked right at the door. There's about 6 G-Wagons with it, some of them with diamonds all around them and everything, you know, and you're just looking, it's a different world. Like, Fitzel went for 30 million just after we played him, and Javi Garcia was in midfield, and Giuliano was then playing in the 10 for Brazil, Zuba up front, and then Kirchhoff, the record scorer for, or cap holder, I think it was, our scorer for Russia as well up front. Like, and it's just littered when you look through. Crescito off Italy, and we played Tel Aviv, and we beat them at home. And that was an incredible feeling. I'm playing against Benayoun comes on, like, and I've been a Liverpool fan, you know, my whole life. So growing up, he would have been playing, you know, Champions League games, and Benayoun was actually excellent for them, even though he was probably good age at the time. But it's just unreal memories that I couldn't have envisaged in the League of Ireland. Like, obviously the goal was always to go to England. It's always to go to the Premier League and the top.
It strikes me though, you must be fairly mentally resilient, because like you have that ACL injury in early 2021, and for a lot of people at that age that would have been it. But I mean, you come back, and even last month you played against Derry up there, and you're one of the best players in the pitch. Like, that probably led to some doubt in your head as to whether this was the time or not the time.
Yeah, I had a decent game there, the last game of the season, and everyone's saying, oh well, you can't retire now, you know, you cruised, it was grand, but it's a different story having to do it day in, day out, you know. And then that's the last game of the season. I hadn't played many games in the season. I think I played 5 or 6 because of injury. So there was a little bit of doubt, but then I knew I'd injured the knee. I'd done something in September, aggravated that knee, that it's the ACL, and I knew I had to scan it, but I decided I was just going to treat the symptoms, and we'll scan it at the end of the season, because if I scanned it then and it was something that they say, listen, you can't play with, then I won't even get back on the pitch. So we were worried it was the ACL, but it turns out it's meniscus injury, so to get that's the small op I have to get done. So but listen, like I said, it's easy to rock out once every now and then and do it, but to do it regularly is a different story, and it's hard on the body, like the intensity of the game. And we were in there the last week of the season, and there was 2 16-year-olds, because it was the midterm. Owen Kenny, actually Stephen's son, and Sen and another lad were in, and I was marking Owen, I think, in one of the games, and he's big, broad lad, athletic, and I just thought to myself, he's 16 or 20 years older than this lad. He was 6 when I met him first. Like, I met him when he was 6, and I just thought maybe this is a sign as well, you know. But great memories, great times, and you know, sometimes you just have to admit to yourself when it's time.
Well, listen, we wish you the very best of luck. As I said, it's like one of the all-time great League of Ireland careers, and you should be very proud of it. I hope it's a celebration now, and you get to like lean into those celebrations over the next couple of weeks, because it's a good time for it, you know.
Yeah, great time. I'm out with the lads actually for Christmas party Saturday, so
there you go.
That might be it. But thanks, appreciate it.
Get the meniscus done after that. Brian Gartland